All right, so I'm not taking some photos, getting the morning coffee, and just exploring the streets a little bit. But I was thinking, I thought I should do a little video because it seems to me that people are more offended that people are going to be not paying student loans than when the government bails out banks. Now, let's clarify something. I'm not out here to support socialism, okay? Socialism doesn't work, and eventually you run out of other people's money. It's an ideology that's based on emotions and feel good, but in the end, who's really driving it is the crooked politicians so they can gain more power. Always, always, always. Those guys, those cops, right? You gotta keep your thugs funded. Any country in the world, politicians want socialism because you gotta keep your system going. You gotta keep your power. All right. So here's the problem: is I'm seeing a lot of good friends and activists and stuff saying, "Oh, these deadbeat people that don't pay their student loans." I'm seeing older people that they got degrees 40 years ago, back when those degrees actually resulted in a job. But here's the problem, and I think deep down most of us know this: the university system is a scam. So let me ask you this. Let's set aside who's paying for the moment, right? Because you're always paying. The government is always screwing around with money, and they're making sure that they're stealing more from you in the form of taxes and regulations and controls. So you have all this theft going on constantly. And then they say, "Oh, we're here to help you. We're here to protect you." So the government's robbing you blind, and then they do these things like, "Oh, we're going to forgive you this. We're going to give you this back," right? But bear in mind that everybody, regardless of status, is getting screwed over. They're getting robbed by the government, and then the government gives us little breadcrumbs back. So this whole forgiving student loans things, the question is really not, should you forgive a loan? Should the government pay off a loan? The real question we should be talking about is this debt valid in the first place? Because you do have a right to validate your debt. I'm here to submit that it's not. I think the topic of student loans from the mainstream is much more of a socialist topic. Oh, the government should help us, right? And the government never helps us. The government takes. That's what governments do. The governments bleed us dry, and then they use the power that they gain from bleeding us dry to create systems and propaganda to think that bleeding us dry is actually helping us. All right? Universities are based on a scam. The scam that you're going to get paid more, you're going to be more successful, you're going to be more important simply by going and get their certificate. And you could say, "Oh, these people are dumb for going to university." Let's stop that for a minute. Just stop. The kids are brainwashed from the moment they're 5 years old, especially if you send them to public schools. Brainwashed by a government in collusion with these universities. So really the success of these universities is not a private endeavor. You have state universities, you have private universities, but they're in collusion with a government that is grooming children to believe that if they go into radical debt to get a degree, everything's going to be better. They're going to be more successful. And then they do that because they've literally been brainwashed since they were 5 years old by a scam of universities colluding with government to manipulate an education system, to convince, dare I say, make them afraid if they don't, to intimidate them that they're not socially acceptable if they don't go to university. Now, I recognize that a lot of these young people go to university, they just go and play, they're not very responsible, and they haven't been taught very much responsibility, but they've still been scammed. So the question really, with this whole, should people owe their university debts? Should you pay a debt if you have been scammed in any way by a company, by a government, by an organization? If you've been manipulated into something that didn't deliver on its promises, should you be obligated to pay the debt you owe to the scammer that scammed you? And I would say the answer to that is no. So maybe the conversation we should be having, instead of government forgiving debt, is that individuals make it really easy for individuals to sue the universities for fraud, to sue the schools that brainwashed them into thinking they needed to go to university. But in the end, guess who would pay? Even if that happened, even if that was the route taken, which they're not going to do because it makes them look bad, we're going to forgive your loans, right? That makes them look good. We're going to let you sue us because we scammed you. Does that make them look good? No, they're not going to do that. Obviously, they're going to take the generous socialist approach. But the fact is, university has been a scam. So if people are promised something, if a guy promises that if you invest this money, you're going to get a return back, you're going to get a great job, you're going to get a house, and they do that from the moment you're a little kid, and the entire system is built around that in collusion with the government, brainwashing of the children, the parents, propaganda in the streets, in the television, and you buy into that because you're going to probably be ignorant at that point. Should you have to pay the scammer that scammed you, that you spent all this money and you don't have anything to show for it? You didn't get, and they could say, oh, they didn't promise you anything, you have to work for it. Actually, that's not true. They planted in your mind, whether there's a written promise or not, that you would gain, that you would be better, that you would have more if you played their game. And most of the people did. They got these degrees, and people make fun of, oh, they got a woman studies degree. Guys, there's a ton of people that got legit engineering degrees and all these kind of different degrees that were supposed to be useful. We're not just talking about hippies here that wanted to pursue some weird sub-artistic culture thing that obviously is not probably going to be a real moneymaker. We're talking about a scam. And if you've been scammed, should you have to pay the scammer? That's my question. All right, you guys, we'll see you soon out here on the streets, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace.